All fans say the Monaco GP is boring, there's no overtakes, it's pure boring racing. But if you look at that weekend as a whole, that's one of the most entertaining weekends we have had in recent Formula One history, genuinely. Okay, in the race, there wasn't the massive amount of overtakes that you want, especially in a 2026 race, considering these regulations. However, it pretty much had everything else. We're about to break down that Monaco weekend as a whole and tell you why it was one of the most entertaining races and race weekends we've had in recent F1 history. We'll start out with the practice sessions, and it looked like straight away Ferrari were coming out of the blocks quick, which was expected going into the weekend. And it was exciting because we thought, okay, maybe it's not going to be a Mercedes winner. However, it almost made Mercedes a bit of an underdog going into the Saturday. So to see Antonelli top practice 3 and then put it on pole in qualifying, it almost felt like a bit of an underdog story despite his start to the season because of all the hype around Ferrari, the pace they showed on Friday. Saturday turned out to be a completely different day. And in terms of the comeback story, the comeback era, the comeback season, seeing Lewis Hamilton fight for a pole position, fight at the front of the grid at a track like Monaco, especially with certain people there, it was brilliant to see. And he nearly got it. He was quicker than Charles consistently this weekend. Okay, maybe he didn't have the ultimate pace of Charles, but in terms of the consistency-based stats, he was quicker than him across the whole weekend. And then in terms of upsets in practice, McLaren are at it again with their reliability issues with Lando Norris once again. So infuriating for the world champion, not even having the chance to defend his title, not even having the chance to get the needed laps, the needed experience, the needed time around the Monaco track to get comfortable, to get confident. Lando simply cannot get confident in that car if you're losing an hour of practice every single weekend. It is crucial to a weekend. And ironically, the only time where he's had a perfect practice and a perfect weekend is a sprint weekend in Miami. Make that make sense. And then we get onto the race. What a spectacle that was. To say there wasn't a single overtake for the lead of the race, Kimi Antonelli completing a grand slam, it literally had everything. Like everything from lap 60 onwards, it was the perfect Monaco GP, all that you can ask for. Now, in terms of the grander picture, Max Verstappen went out on lap 1, and with Verstappen in that race, no one's going to know if Antonelli would have had a challenge. I just think overall at Antonelli's pace, Verstappen still wouldn't have been able to have challenged that. However, Hadjar finished on the podium. We know Verstappen's quicker than Hadjar, therefore you never know what could have happened. Verstappen maybe could have challenged him, especially with that late red flag. But Verstappen out of the race on lap 1 provided a bit of entertainment within itself. Verstappen in the media, always entertaining, saying he's going home. It's classic. I do feel for him, and that number 3 curse is definitely real. And as if Lando Norris couldn't physically have another engine issue, well, he did. Like, of course he did, you know, it's Lando Norris in the 2026 Grand Prix. He's going to have an engine issue. And back-to-back engine failures now for the world champion. I'd get rid of that number 1 now. Now, I've saved it for a little bit. We need to talk about George Russell. That was shambolic. In a weekend that almost had pressure on Kimi Antonelli to do well, George Russell to beat Kimi Antonelli, he completely fumbled once again. Okay, there was bad luck involved again, but let's just say, let's roll it back to the Saturday. If George Russell puts in a better lap, not 4 tenths behind his teammate, he wouldn't have had any of those issues he had on the Sunday. Simple. He has to put in a better qualifying lap to sort himself out in Monaco. That is 75% of the job in Monaco, in my opinion, and he failed that bit. He was in P6. What was he expecting? Then he actually got quite fortunate in the race not to get a penalty because of his grid start, not to get a penalty for crossing the white line. He clearly crossed it a little bit. Again, I didn't think he deserved a penalty for that when he got investigated, but fortunately was clearly on his side not to give him one there. Speeding in the pit lane, everyone got that. The drive-through penalty, okay, it's the team's fault, but again, it's just caused by chaos from George Russell being further back in the pack. Again, being behind Isaac Hadjar with that problem is caused by chaos with George Russell being further back in the pack than he should be. It's simple. Do a better job in qualifying, none of that happens in the race. The drive-through penalty is unlucky. Backing up the pack seemed a bit like a frustration point for George Russell, not even like a tactical game, just pure frustration. So I don't know why he ended up doing that. But overall, another poor weekend for George Russell, and that could have just cost him the title because 66, 68 points, wherever it is, it's a lot of points to claw back now. Kimi Antonelli needs 2 DNFs and George Russell pretty much to win most of the GPs remaining for it to be a chance to come back into this title. It is ridiculous what George Russell needs to do now. Another driver I want to talk about is Liam Lawson. What a weekend, and what a season he is having. P5 when he wasn't even meant to start the race. Issues before the race, he told Martin Brundle, I don't think I'm starting. Well, he started in 10th, he finished 5th, and as simply, he did nothing wrong. In that race of carnage, it was simple. If you stayed calm and did nothing wrong, you were getting a good result. It was proven with Lawson, it was proven with Lindblad. They came 5th and 6th. Lindblad started 15th and finished 6th. Brilliant for a Monaco rookie. But Vicard stayed calm and got the result. It was simple. What a job by Lawson, and what a season, what a remontada season he is having. And now another driver that we definitely need to talk about is the home favourite Charles Leclerc. On lap 60, Lance Stroll crashed into the final corner, causing the carnage of the Monaco GP. From that safety car restart, Charles Leclerc did the exact same crash. Now, obviously, it was because of that tarmac, it was awful, but surely as a team for Ferrari, if you have seen that Lance Stroll has crashed because of that tarmac, tell Charles Leclerc not to go and take a wide line into that corner. Surely as a team, maybe because they thought of Lance Stroll's, you know, poor ability compared to other drivers. It was just complete driver error. If you just looked at the tarmac, you saw if he didn't take a wide line, he probably would have got a podium in that race. It's another home nightmare for Leclerc. And as much as I really don't think it was Charles Leclerc's fault to be crashing, you know, no one else went out wide there, but I think it's incredibly unlucky once again. He's not having an ideal 2026 season, especially after just signing a new contract. The highs of a new contract to the lows of crashing out of your home Grand Prix, unacceptable. And now another driver we need to talk about, Isaac Hadjar. He had problems left, right and centre all throughout that Grand Prix. Reminded me of a certain Red Bull driver in 2018, but he still managed to get a podium because even though he was stressing out within the race, he stayed calm and he got the podium over the line. His first for Red Bull Racing. What a brilliant job by Hadjar. They've definitely signed the right number 2 man at Red Bull Racing. What a backup, because he did exactly what he needs to do. When Verstappen isn't there, you maximise your result. Simple. Another man we need to talk about is Pierre Gasly. Now, I said going into this weekend, Pierre Gasly needed a big Grand Prix. And my word, did he have that in terms of performance, and was incredibly unlucky to miss out on a podium. On track P3 in an Alpine, again, because he kept his nose clean and kept calm. Now, the penalties I thought were extremely harsh and unlucky, but that's Formula One sometimes. It's going to hurt. A lot of people got penalties. It just seemed to hurt Gasly the most. But what a brilliant job by Gasly overall the whole weekend. I said just for himself, he needed a big weekend in terms of performance, how Colapinto was performing recently, and he brought that to the table and some more. Nearly genuinely scoring a podium, on track scoring a podium for Alpine, especially in the 2026 season when the field spread is so wide. Ridiculous. Oscar Piastri got P4 for McLaren in a weekend that was dire. Now that is a very solid result by the Aussie, because McLaren were awful all weekend in terms of performance, massively off the pace. Just consistently slower than Ferrari, slower than Mercedes, slower than Red Bull. Almost challenging Audi and Alpine in practice. That's how slow they were. And they've got 2 of the top drivers in Formula One, in my opinion. Mental. We thought Cadillac scored a point with Sergio Perez. However, Fernando Alonso spoiled that party. Well, not really. Perez got the penalty, which then allowed Fernando Alonso to get a point in an Aston Martin. What? That car is awful, and Alonso has scored a point in it. Levels. But just concluding this Monaco GP race, the youngsters are arriving onto the scene. Your Antonelli, your Hadjar, and then the GOATs are proving that they can adapt to every kind of car, any kind of regulation. Your Hamilton, your Verstappen. And that is the difference for me at the minute. The youngsters are turning up to the present. The future's becoming the present, and the GOATs always remain. I'd love to be able to see Lando Norris's pace in these cars. I think it's extremely strong, up there with Verstappen and Hamilton. However, we just simply cannot see it. So to conclude this all, saying the Monaco GP is boring, you'd be lying this year. Okay, there was no proper, genuine on-track pass, but it caused chaos everywhere else. Make sure to like and subscribe for more F1 content coming at you in 2026. We want to blow up. Stay tuned for constant F1 content, 2 videos a week. Thank you for watching.